Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Exotic Astrology once again, and we are here with the transit of Saturn in the sign of Aquarius. As you know, Saturn will be transiting in the sign of Aquarius by end of April this year and will remain uh, up till March 2025. As you know, Saturn stays in a sign for 2.5 to 3 years. So let's discuss what this transit will bring in for each and every ascendant, and how will this transit figure out for people in general. And as I always say, for specifics, it will always depend on your own horoscope and which Mahadasha, which Antardasha are you running during this period of time. Okay. And as usual, if you're new to the channel, then please subscribe to it down below. And if you want a personalized consultation from me regarding this transit, then please go to my website down in the description section, exoticastrology.in. And yes, God is there with you always. Just look to Him and you will find Him. And I've also made the transit videos for Rahu, Ketu, and Jupiter. So you will also find them down in the comment section in case you have not watched it. All right. So before we go into specific ascendants, I would like to address this question. Very frequently, people ask me that should we see these transits from the moon sign, which is the Rashi, or should we see it from the ascendant, which is the Lagna, right? So I've always answered it, and I'm answering yet again here. We should see the transits from the ascendant because the transit gives the result based on the ascendant, because the ascendant decides which house this transit will occur, right? So if you are a Aries ascendant, for example, then this transit will happen in your 11th house, because Aquarius is in your 11th house if you are Aries ascendant, right? And the ascendant deals with the physical external reality which we can see, which is like tangible changes in our life. So therefore you can also see the transit from your moon sign, which is technically traditionally known as Rashi, but that will only give you an idea of how will you view this transit from the level of your mind. Okay. But if you really want to know what kind of changes will this transit bring in your real life, then this transit and any other transit must be viewed from the ascendant itself. Okay. And along with this, you have to understand that this transit is the transit of Saturn in his Mool Trikon sign. Okay. So in astrology we have own sign. So own sign is like the sign which is ruled by a particular planet himself, and Aquarius is the Mool Trikon sign, which is even better. Mool Trikon is can also be a sign which the planet himself rules sometimes. Okay. And then there is exaltation, of course. So this transit of Saturn in Aquarius is the second best transit. Okay. So after exaltation we have Mool Trikon. So therefore we know what Aquarius is. Aquarius is new age technology. Aquarius is the sense of collectivism, sense of community, sense of togetherness, sense of belonging, sense of making a change in my life and in the life of everybody else, and making a change in the life of the entire universe, basically, right? So therefore this transit is a very important transit because this transit will and can gear off many things, like for example, things which people want to see at a large scale. Okay. Things like electric vehicles, renewable energy, so many things which are going on, cryptocurrencies, anything and everything which can change the world and make the world a better place day by day. Okay. So therefore this transit is a time for everybody to think and ponder what are some of the changes that we can bring into our life and also in the life of everybody else. All right, so let us go into Aries ascendants. So what about Aries? What's going on with Aries? So for Aries, this transit is happening in your 11th house. So Saturn in your case is the lord of the 10th house. He's also the lord of the 11th, and he's going to aspect your first house, which is your Lagna, your ascendant, your rising sign, and then he's going to aspect your 5th house, which is also a Trikona, right? And he's also going to aspect the 8th house. So what is the 8th house? 8th house is the house of, sudden occurrences in life, and 8th house can also mean inheritance and so many other things. But primarily, the 10th lord is transiting your 11th house, right? And who is himself the 11th lord. So this is a very amazing transit to become an influencer. Why do I say influencer? Because influencer doesn't mean that you just have some, a million subscribers or, a big fan following. That's not exactly what an influencer is. An influencer can have one follower also, or 10 followers, or 100 followers also, but he or she is one who can make a positive change in this world, right? So the 11th house is known as the Labhasthan. It is known as the Ichha Purti, okay, which means fulfillment of desires, right? So any desire that you have gets fulfilled, depending on your horoscope and your dashas, of course, conditions apply. But as I said in the intro part, if there is something which you feel that you can contribute to the society, then this is a very good time maybe to put yourself out in the open, right? Maybe if you have something to share, you could start a channel in YouTube, or page in Instagram or anything like that. Or it could be anything like something to do with finance or spirituality, or health, fitness, the world in general, anything it can be. And because Saturn aspects your 5th house, therefore the 11th and the 5th both are houses of children, basically, okay? So therefore there is a possibility that you could have birth of a child, right? New child, if you are married, or you could also adopt, right? Depending on your horoscope. So childbirth is something which is always associated with the 5th and the 11th, because the 5th house is the core house of children and the 11th house is the house of fulfillment of desire, right? So therefore apart from this, the 11th house is also known as Kalpa Vriksh, which is fulfillment of desire. So as I have said repeatedly, this transit is the time for you, like 2.5 years, right? So this transit is the time where you try to fulfill your desires, okay? So desires doesn't have to be necessarily materialistic or financial desires. It can be anything, if you are in a relationship and you want to get married, then that's a very good time. Or you want to go into the stock market, then also it's a very good time. And if you are married, you want to have kids, then also it's a very good time. So, or as I said, you want to become an influencer and put yourself out in the open, right? So 11th house represents overall success. So there is no one area which indicates you will only be successful in this area, right? So it can be anything, but if it's the 10th lord, then it's like your profession, right? Your name, fame, power, position, status, authority, right? So it's like sky is the limit, okay? And because the 5th and the 8th houses are also receiving the aspect, so it can also mean the stock market, okay? So make sure you do not invest in super risky assets, but if you can take calculated risks, then maybe this is a good time to sit and do it in consultation with your financial advisor, of course, okay? And also there is a possibility, because the 5th house is the house of creativity, so you could have a creative income, right? So if you know to sing, then maybe you could start a channel in YouTube and start singing. Who knows, somebody might give you a contract to sing, right? It can be singing, painting, dancing, anything it can be, right? Or it could also be astrology, because astrology is also the 8th house, right? So therefore try and put your to bring your life in order, and try to see every area of life, because the ascendant also receives the aspect of Saturn. So that shows if you try and focus, then things will definitely materialize. So it's a great time for you, all Aries. So congratulations and wish you all the best. So now let's move to the next sign, to the sign of Taurus. Okay, so what's going on with Taurus here? So for Taurus, this transit is happening in your 10th house. Saturn is the lord of the 9th house and your 10th house also. He is the 10th lord transiting the 10th house. And from there, he aspects your 4th house, the 7th house and also your 12th house. So this transit of Taurus, of Saturn, for Taurus in the 10th house is a very interesting transit, because for Taurus, Saturn is not an ordinary planet. He is known as the Yoga Karaka, right? Yoga Karaka is a planet which rules a trine and a angular house, a Kendra and a Trikona simultaneously. So the 10th house is a Kendra house, right? Angular house. And the 9th house is a Trikona, it's a trinal house. So Saturn rules a Kendra and a Trikona simultaneously. So therefore he qualifies to be a Yoga Karaka, just like in the case of a Libra ascendant also. So in your case, the Yoga Karaka is transiting in the 10th house, right? So it's like the 9th lord transiting in the 10th house. So this is a very special condition in astrology, which is known as Dharma Karmadhipati Yoga, right? So whenever the 9th house and the 10th house are somehow linked, then there's a very powerful yoga which is formed, right? Which is known as Dharma Karmadhipati Yoga. What does this mean? Does it mean you will do something religious because the word dharma is involved? Well, not exactly, not necessarily always. Dharma Karmadhipati Yoga means you do something which is in line with your own dharma. Okay, so in line with your dharma means anything which is very true to your nature. Okay, so maybe you are a football player, right? So then you can play football and you can gain recognition, because 10th house is the house of recognition. Okay, so you could be a painter, right? So you might also make paintings, and you might leave your job, for example, and become a full-time painter, right? So all these things can happen when Dharma Karmadhipati Yoga occurs, right? So essentially it means you do something which is so true to yourself. It's like the dharma of sugar is to be sweet, as the Vedic scriptures say. So therefore try and find out what is the true essence within you and try to do something in that domain, right? That is how you will get success, because the 10th house is the house of success. Okay, so there could be a legacy that you leave, right? And then because the 12th house and the 4th house are involved, so there could also be some luxury purchases, right? Because 4th house shows your property, your vehicles, your clothes and everything is under the 4th house. So because the 12th house shows expenses, so you could go and buy some luxury vehicle or luxury property or something like that, right? And the 10th house also is the house of dominance, which means a planet in the 10th house dominates the chart, right? Because it's a very powerful house. So it's where the sun gets digbali, it's like where the sun gets directional strength. So the 10th house is the most important of all the Kendra houses, right? And then if you are into business, because the 7th house also receives the aspect, so it could happen that you are going to do some new acquisitions, right? You could also do some mergers depending on your business profile, of course. And therefore because the 7th house and the 10th house are associated with this transit for Taurus, so you could also act as a kingmaker, because the 7th house deals with negotiations, right? So therefore it could happen that you become like a kingmaker, when you can help two parties settle big disputes, right? So therefore you can also see that the 7th house is known as Vriddhi, which is expansion, right? And the 10th house is known as Siddhi, right? So if there is a yoga with the 7th house, it is known as Vriddhi Yoga. And if there is a yoga with the 10th house, it's known as Siddhi Yoga or Siddha Yoga. Okay, so Vriddhi means expansion, Siddhi or Siddha means success, overall success. Okay, so therefore this is a very interesting transit, because now you have Vriddhi and Siddhi together. So you can be successful in your business, in your profession. And also because the 9th house and the 12th house are associated, so you could also have international fame, right? So therefore, do not waste time during this transit. Put all your career plans into action and you will have all-around success. Okay, congratulations, Taurus. Now let us move to the next sign, which is the sign of Cancer. Nope, Gemini. So let's go to Gemini. What's going on with Gemini, right? So for Gemini, this transit is happening in your 9th house, the most powerful of all Trikonas, right? and it is the eighth lord and the ninth lord itself. And from the ninth house it aspects the third house, and it will also aspect the sixth house, and it will also aspect your 11th house, right? So there you can see the photo. This is the photo of none other than Lord Sri Ramachandra, right? So what is the ninth house? The ninth house is the house of God. It's the house of Guru. It's the house of religion, spirituality, higher education, knowledge, divinity, transformation. And it's also the house where you get enlightenment, right? Or it's the house where you get elevation, basically, right? Of course, transformation is primarily the eighth house, but ninth house represents that transformation which ultimately benefits you, right? Because every transformation may not benefit you necessarily, right? But if there is a transformation associated with the ninth house, you are sure to be benefited from it. Okay, so now for you, Gemini, this transit is happening in your ninth house, which means it's like, God's power is there with you. Now you can go and achieve any desire that you have, because this Saturn also aspects your 11th house. Therefore 11th house is also the fulfillment of desires, right? So if you have any plans, any desires, to get some knowledge from somewhere, it does not have to be spiritual knowledge necessarily. It can also be some mundane knowledge. Okay, so maybe there is some requirement of skill which you might be looking for, okay, within your profession, to change your profession or to upgrade yourself in the profession. So then now is the time you go and get that skill, okay. So always be in contact with your guru, your guide, your mentor, your counselor, or your astrologer, or your advisor, anybody, right? Financial advisor or anybody. And then you could also do some publications in IEEE and these big organizations, because ninth house also shows international languages and international organizations. So apart from this, the third house also receives the aspect of Saturn. So it is possible that you can do one of the two things, because third house shows that which you teach and ninth house shows that which you learn from others, okay. So e-learning is very much possible, because the third house also, if related to technology, then it can show e-learning and all this. So basically now is the time you be like a river, basically, okay. So the river is why do I say river? Because the ninth house shows what you get, so you get knowledge, and the third house shows what you give, so you get and you give, okay. So you try to get knowledge and give knowledge to others, okay. Then because the third house is linked to the sixth house, so consulting could also be there on cards. So this could be business consulting or any kind of consulting. Eighth house can also show Ayurveda, astrology and all this. So apart from this, because the third house is linked with the 11th house, so therefore it can also show that you are having a change of residence, you are going to developed countries. And the third house specifically shows permits, right, like the visa, PR, citizenship. And the ninth house shows government. So whenever the third house is linked with the ninth house, it shows some government related permits, big permits like visa, PR, citizenship. So, and because the 11th house is also associated, which is the house of fulfillment of desire, so you could very well be getting a visa, depending on your horoscope, of course, and your dashas. And if you already have a visa, then you might, if you have stayed in a country for some time, and you have fulfilled the requirements, you might get a PR. And if you already have a PR, you might also get citizenship, okay, of any developed country, for example. Of course, these things have to be seen in context of your horoscope. And also ninth house shows languages, as I said. So you could also learn a foreign language, or maybe you should learn, okay, because that might help you during any interview process, or getting a job in a country which has a different language, of course. So explore and get knowledge and give knowledge. All right, thank you, Gemini. So now is the time we move to Cancer. So for Cancer, what's going on? Cancer has this transit in the 8th house, and Saturn is the lord of the 7th house. Along with your 8th house is also your 8th lord. And there he aspects the second house, fifth house, and the 10th house, right, from the eighth house. So what is the eighth house? The eighth house represents anything to do with other people, basically. Okay, it can show other people's money, it can show debt, it can show in-laws, right? Debt in the sense it can show good debt and bad debt. Okay, so if you are taking loan from the government, to buy rental properties, for example, not for yourself but for others, right? So then you are using leverage. So eighth house shows leverage, which is a very important term in real estate. But be careful, you might also end up taking loans for yourself, like to buy liabilities, like and just to waste money in luxuries, right? So do not do that. Try to, if at all you are taking debt, then try to take good debt. Okay, and also as I said, the eighth house shows in-laws. So the in-laws, why do I say in-laws? Because the seventh lord is transiting the eighth house. Okay, so the seventh house is the house of marriage. So whenever the seventh house is associated with the eighth house, then it definitely shows other people related to your marriage, which is your in-laws, of course. And of course the eighth house can show unearned money, which is like inheritance, or any, like any money which you get during retirement or something like that. So therefore, if you get some inheritance, then make sure you use it properly and you do proper asset allocation for that, right? Because the second house shows your combined assets, your net worth, and your 10th house also shows professional earning that you have, right? Your status in society. So apart from this, as I said, you might be tempted to take on bad debt and buy liabilities, and then you might have a tough time paying those EMIs later on. So be very careful before you take any unnecessary EMI, for example, okay, mortgage. Apart from this, the seventh house is associated with the 10th, so this is a very good time to do some collaboration. So if you are into business, then maybe it's great to collaborate with somebody who is also doing something similar, right? By that you can expand and you can grow, because 7th house shows growth and 10th house also shows growth. Okay, so therefore it's a very interesting time to combine things, okay, or to venture into new domains, new territories, okay, expand your business. Apart from this, as the photo obviously suggests, you could also go into the stock market, because the stock market is seen from the 5th house and the 8th house and the 10th house and the 11th house. So all the three houses which indicate stock market speculation and all this is indicated. Therefore it is imperative that you make calculated investments, you take risks, but make sure that's calculated, and you only invest, you do not invest more than what you can lose, right? So apart from this, the 8th house and the 5th house can also show creativity, and it can also show anything which is very deep down within yourself. Okay, and now because the 10th house is associated, so it can also mean that you are having some creative income, for example. Also the second house is linked, which is also the house of money, so there could be creative income. Okay, so therefore this is a time where you understand that now I can put my creativity into work, and I could turn my passion also into profession. Not necessarily always, but yeah, I could try, or maybe that could be a side income. Okay, and also there could be unexpected offers, because 8th house shows unexpected gains also if linked with the 10th house. So therefore keep your eyes open, try to harness good opportunities, and who knows, you might have some unexpected offers anytime. So keep yourself in check, and by that you will obtain success. All right, so thank you, Cancer. And now is the time we go to the next ascendant, which is Leo. So for Leo, it's pretty obvious. This transit is happening in your 7th house. Although there are many caveats to this. Saturn is your 6th lord and your 7th lord, transiting in the 7th house, right? From there he aspects your Lagna, he aspects your 4th house and your 9th house, right? So the 1st, 4th and 9th are receiving the aspect of Saturn. So now, What is the seventh house? The seventh house generally can show marriage. It can also show business partnerships, right? So what does it show in this case? Well, it can show both, because the seventh house is anything where you expand, right? And whenever it is linked with the money houses, which are the money houses, the second, sixth, and 10th, it can definitely show expansion in business also. Okay, so therefore, if you are in a relationship and you wish to get married with that person, then now is the perfect time to do that. Okay, and also it shows business partnerships, so therefore maybe it could happen that you are wanting to start a new startup, for yourself, but maybe you are not sound in a particular area. Maybe you know the core, but you don't know technology, or you don't know finances, okay, or you don't know marketing, right? So you might try to find a business partner who complements you and fulfills your deficiencies, which can take the business to the next level. Okay, and then Saturn also aspects your first house, which is the ascendant. So it can very well show that you are wanting to get into the fitness industry. Okay, not like becoming a fitness instructor. Yeah, that could also happen, or at least you focus on your own fitness. Okay, and then it can also show that there is a change of residence. Why do I say this? Because Saturn is aspecting the fourth house and the ninth house. Okay, so the fourth house is your original residence, and ninth house can sometimes show distant places. Okay, not foreign countries, but within your country, different places. Okay, so therefore there could be a change of residence because of your marriage or your profession. One of the two could come into place, because depending on your horoscope, of course, but because the sixth lord is showing profession and seventh lord shows marriage, so I would leave the window open for both the scenarios. And also seventh house can show multiplicity, right? Which means you expand, right, by having business partnerships, or you could also do some collaborations. If you have a YouTube channel, for example, you could do collaborations, or if you are into IT, you might learn new technologies, for example, right? And along with this, you could also transition from having a job to freelancing, or becoming a full-time business owner, right? So generally it's not recommended to leave your job and start your business full-time, not for everybody, of course. So it's recommended that you have your job and you start doing some freelancing, and then when you have the confidence and when you understand the market, then you become a business owner full time, of course. And this is like a general recommendation for most people. Of course, there are exceptions to this rule. Apart from this, you can also have higher education. Why do I say that? Because the fourth house shows education, and the ninth house, when related with the fourth house, can show higher education. Okay, because the ninth house shows anything which you learn from God, or from your guru, or from your seniors, right? So could show your professor or your guide or anybody like that. So basically this transit for Leos is one word: expansion. Okay, so multiply yourself, expand yourself, go into new territories, meet new people, interact and formalize deals, negotiations, contracts, and by that you will have grand success. All right, so thank you, Leos, and now is the time we move on to Virgos. So what's going on with Virgo? So for Virgo, this transit is in your sixth house, and Saturn is the lord of your fifth house. He's also the lord of your sixth house. He's aspecting the third, the eighth, and the 12th. Very important houses. Now, what is the sixth house? The sixth house can show your dream job, right? So therefore, if you are unemployed, if you are a student, maybe it's a great time to do an internship now. Okay, and if you're already an intern, then it might be a good time to request the company for giving you a full-time contract, right? And if you already have a job, it might be a great time to get promoted, or search a new job within your company, or maybe outside. Okay, outside your company. So therefore, this transit represents focusing on your daily day-to-day activities, because sixth house shows routine repetitive work. Okay, and along with this, it can also show some side hustle. Why do I say this? Because the fifth house can show things which you do not do in a consistent manner, okay, in context of profession, because it's the 12th from the sixth house. But it can show things which you do out of your own interest, you do in the weekends or on Fridays, or once or twice a week, for example. So because the fifth lord is transiting the sixth, so therefore it's very well possible that you can, of course, have a side hustle. And also, because the 12th house is associated, so therefore it can mean that there are some expenses in accounts of your business, right? So there could be some business expenses. Okay, and also the fifth house shows your inner desire, and when that lord of the fifth is transiting in the sixth, it can show that you trust yourself when it comes to your skills. Okay, so therefore it could very well mean that you start a new freelancing. Okay, you can or somebody might approach you and give you a freelancing contract or opportunity. And along with this, because the third house and the 12th house shows foreign land, so there could also be an on-site opportunity which you get for a big company abroad, maybe. And this can also be a part of that dream job which I already spoke about. Or it could be something unexpected also, because the eighth house is involved. Okay, so you might not be expecting, but your manager might recommend you for going there. Okay, so please take the opportunity if you are given immediately. And along with this, because the third house receives the aspect of Saturn, so it could very well be possible that you are into technology, you are into IT, or into the web development, or within IT or outside also. You could be into marketing, advertising, and all this. So therefore, the third house and the fifth house can also show a career in sales. Okay, so if you're planning to go into sales, and try something, or if you are planning to sell something like your property or your vehicle or anything, or maybe your laptop, for example, then now is a good time. You might try to sell it. Okay, because the sixth house can show income, so it can show that you are gaining something out of selling something. Okay, so therefore now is the time that you do some freelancing, look for other opportunities abroad, and also because the fifth house and the eighth house and the 12th house shows creativity, so now the sixth house can bless you with some creative income. Okay, so you could be doing freelancing as a technical specialist, like within your domain. But apart from this, you could also do freelancing in some creative work. Okay, like one of my friend, he has just he's planning to start, he's a very good painter, so he's planning to start selling his paintings. Okay, so it is very well possible, not necessarily painting, it can be anything, right? So therefore try to find and explore what creative interests you have, and how can you earn some money out of it. Okay, so if you can figure that out, I'm very sure you will have multiple streams of income, multiple sources of income. And you could also write a book and publish your ideas, right? Because the third house can also show books. So essentially the sixth house shows earning. Okay, so anything and by any means through which you can earn more, this is the time that you explore those opportunities. Okay, so thank you, Virgos. Now is the time we move on to the next, which is Libra ascendants. So for Libra, this transit is happening in your fifth house, and Saturn is the fourth lord. He's your fifth lord also, and from the fifth he aspects the second, the seventh, and the 11th houses, right? So as I said, for Taurus and for Libra, Saturn is a very special planet because he's a yoga karaka, because he simultaneously rules a Kendra house and a Trikona house. Okay, so fourth house is a Kendra and a fifth house is a Trikona, basically. So Saturn is a yoga karaka for Libra, and therefore this transit of the yoga karaka in the fifth house, which is another trikona, as you are seeing in this picture, is going to be very beneficial for you, depending on your dashas, of course, and your original birth chart. But the transit of Saturn in the fifth house can encourage you to have children, right? If you are married, and it can also encourage you to expand your family, right? Or to get somebody within your family married, okay? Because from the fifth, he always aspects the second, which is the house of family, seventh house is marriage, and the 11th house is fulfillment of desire, right? So if there's somebody in your family who is looking to get married, then maybe now it's a good time to try and help find somebody for them, right? And then see if they can like each other, and then they can get married. Or if you are already married yourself, then you're doing further family planning and having a child, then now it's the perfect time. But there are many other important aspects to this transit, okay? So for example, one of them is higher education. Why do I say higher education? Because the fifth house is the primary house of gyan, knowledge, okay? The fourth house shows, education which you get in the school, and something traditional. But the fifth house can show intelligence, right? What you gain out of the information that you have, it's like knowledge or wisdom, you could say, right? So ultimately you could do some specialization, move into higher education, like do a master's or a PhD. All these things could be there on cards, depending on what is indicated in your Mahadasha and Antardasha. And as I said, because this aspects the seventh house, so if you already are in a relationship, it's also a great time to convert that into marriage. And also there could be some creative side hustle that you start doing, because the fifth house can show creativity, and the second house can show income, and the 11th house can show fulfillment of desires, okay? But the thing is, the fourth house is also associated here, okay? So this creative side hustle that you could do will require some skill, okay? So it won't be it could be, but it may not be necessarily something which you just do rarely sometimes, okay? It shows something which you are really convinced, which you are very good at, and you can do it regularly, okay? Because the fourth house shows skills which you are very good at, okay? So if there is something apart from your job which you feel you are very good at, then maybe it's a very good time to make a business out of it, okay? And of course the seventh house also shows expansion, okay? So it's like vriddhi, so there could be expansion. So it's like, childbirth, so your family has expanded, right? Or somebody else getting married in your family has again expanded. And it can show expansion within your business also, or you could go from one creative income to another, like 2-3 creative incomes, right? Because of the fourth and the fifth. And the 11th house and the fifth house, they are also houses of promotion, because the fifth house is the 8th from the 10th house, which can show a new job, change of job, okay? So there could be a promotion, and there could be like big success, okay, depending on your dasha, of course. And also because the 2nd, 5th and 11th, these are houses of humans, basically humans in the sense other people, community, family. So therefore it could be a very good time for you to join a community, okay? So if you are into IT and you are doing programming, then maybe you join some programming community, or you are into finance, so then try to join some finance community. Now online also it's possible. Or if you are into fitness, rather than just going to the gym or yoga center, try to have a mentor and expert who can help you. And also you could gain knowledge from others also, right? And also you could at the end join a spiritual community. So basically for Libra, now is the time that you strengthen your human connections, and thereby you also grow professionally and personally also. Okay, thank you very much, wish you all the best. Now we go to Scorpio Lagna, Scorpio ascendants. So what's going on for a Scorpio? So for Scorpio, this transit is happening in your fourth house. It's happening in the house of house. Because the fourth house represents your house, your home. It represents real estate in general. It represents anything that is very stable, right? Because the fourth house also shows land. Okay, so the lordship of Saturn for Scorpio is the third and the fourth. Okay, so of course you might look for your dream house online, and maybe it's a very good time to purchase your house. Apart from this, you can also do licensing, and you could be working as a contractor. You could help in making deals, property deals, negotiations, or you could also help in areas of medicine, right? Why do I say medicine? Because the first house and the sixth house can show medicine. Okay, not literally medicine, but it can show diseases. So it's like you are helping those who are having diseases, right? So therefore you could venture into the medical sector. Could be medicine, or it could be Ayurveda, or it could be homeopathy, allopathy, anything. But generally Saturn shows Ayurveda, but I would not limit it just to Ayurveda. You could also explore other territories. Okay, and also because the fourth house can show vehicles, so you could also purchase a vehicle if Venus is associated during this dasha in your horoscope. And apart from this, the third house is linked, so it very well tells me that you could also go into car dealership, and yeah, you could get commission, and you could have a side income from that, right? Just like real estate, for example. Apart from this, the fourth house can show skill, and the third house is something which is like a culmination of your entire skill set. Okay, so the third house shows that which is at the background of your mind. So therefore it's a very interesting time for you to expand your skill set, right? Learn new technologies, learn new things, learn about new ventures, new avenues, expand yourself basically. And also the 10th house is receiving the aspect of Saturn, which means you could have authority position within your organization, right? Or you might move into a new organization, because the third house can also show change. Okay, so therefore you could make that change which you wish. And always remember that the fourth house and the third house, when they are combined, it always shows something which you have to bring it out in the open. Okay, so this can also show that you write a book, you present your ideas outside, and you gain fan following through that, and through that you might start doing your own business. Or the 6th house and 10th house also show finances, right? So it's very well possible you become very interested in finances, in your savings, your expenses, and try to track how much money do you spend, and try and see how can you expand your sources of income. Okay, because many times I talk to people and they say we don't have any money, and then I'm like, okay, is your problem with income or with savings, right? And most of them end up saying it's savings, right? So try to save more money, invest it in good assets, and try to also diversify your portfolio and expand into other territories, other zones by which you can increase your income sources. Okay, so all the best to Scorpio. Now we go into Sagittarius. So for Sagittarius, this transit is happening in your third house, and Saturn lords your second, the third, obviously, and he aspects the 5th, 9th, and the 12th. So the third house shows information technology. The third house can show marketing. The third house can show advertising. Okay, third house can show writing, the third house can show publishing. Okay, so these are different things which you could do. The third house can also show learning, tutoring. Okay, I mean not learning, sorry, it can show teaching, but here it can also show learning because the fifth and the ninth are associated with it. Okay, so therefore third house can also show your brand basically, right? It can show how people know you in social media. Okay, so if you have any plans, if you have an idea, maybe it's a great time to make a website or make a logo and publish it, and then try to sell your product basically, right? So it can show IT, so it can show that if you have a store, for example, it has nothing to do with IT, then maybe you could make a website and try to take it online, right? Because and also you could be very much interested in IT and new technologies now. And also it could happen that you are already into IT and you learn new technologies within the IT sphere also. Okay, and also because the ninth house and the 12th house are associated, so it could happen that you get an on-site opportunity abroad. Okay, and apart from this, as I said, learning is definitely on cards, learning and teaching both. So you could develop a e-learning platform where you could make online courses and sell them and have great income basically. And also you could do consulting like business consulting, management consulting, or any consulting related to marketing, because sales is seen from the third house and the fifth house. And because from the third, Saturn aspects the fifth house, so it's very well possible that you might do very good in sales. Okay, so therefore now is the time, if you are planning to change your domain into sales, maybe it's a great time for you to do that. And also if you are planning to sell something within your own home, that could be a good time, maybe to sell it somewhere, or maybe you could sell your home if you want to, your house or your vehicle, right, if required. So any kind of sales and advertising, that is also going to be profitable for you. And also the ninth house can show research, right, and the third house can show publishing. So you could publish a research paper, journal papers and all this. And also because the second house and the 12th house is linked, so it can show that you are now very much interested in tracking your finances. Okay, where am I losing money, where is my expenditure increasing, right? So maybe you can try to download some app through which you can track your own money, right? And then you can see simultaneously how can you expand your income basically, okay, through social media, through IT, through e-learning, through consulting. So by that you expand your earning and you reduce your expenses, and then by that ultimately you end up saving more money, right? And then you further invest it. So the third house and fifth house can also show things related to your passion. Okay, so during this time you might have this confusion within you. Oh, I have this passion within me and I have this profession, right? I love this passion, I love this work that I want to do, but then I do not like my profession very much. So what should I do? Should I stay in my profession or should I make my passion into profession, right? Well, that depends on your situation and your horoscope, but in general it is recommended that you try to do some freelancing with your passion, and then as you see there are more opportunities, you finally try to see if you can make it into a full-time profession. Okay, so overall for Sagittarius, this transit is the time to explore new opportunities and try to see if you can learn new things and give knowledge to others, because third house is primarily the house where you give knowledge. Okay, so showcase yourself, showcase your talents, not that you do show off. Okay, just showcase, show others what you can offer, how can you make life better for others, and then you will get rewarded. Okay, so thank you Sagittarius. Now let us move to the sign Capricorn. So Capricorn, very special ascendant for this transit, because Saturn is none other than your Lagna Lord. He is the Lord of your ascendant. He is the Lord of Capricorn. So as I'm making this video, he is in Capricorn now, and by 29th of April, he will move into Aquarius. So, as you are seeing this video, Saturn is still in Capricorn. Okay. Uh, Today is 15th April. So, in another 2 weeks, your Lagna Lord is moving from your Lagna to the next house, which is the second house. And from there, he is going to aspect the fourth house, he's going to aspect the eighth house, and he's also going to aspect the 11th house, and he's also the lord of your second house, right? So what is the second house? Second house can show anything related to your family, right? It can show marriage. So if you are in a relationship and you like to make a further commitment for the rest of your life, then it's a very good time to get married. Then if you're already married, then it can show that you might be enthusiastic to have children, so it's a great time for childbirth. Or suppose you already have children and you do not want to have further children, then maybe it's a good time you focus on your children, right? Because nowadays in the 21st century, most of the people are only focusing on their careers, wealth, finance, name, fame, power, position, and then sometimes we might feel a bit lonely, right? Even in spite of having all these achievements, if we do not have the right people within our circle to celebrate it with, right? Now, of course, second house does not only mean the family with whom you are born, but it can show your friends or relatives, anybody who you consider to be like your family. Okay. Not necessarily friends, but in this case it can, because it still aspects the 11th house of friends. Okay. And the 8th house can show inheritance. So the second house and the 8th house, when linked, it can definitely show inheritance. Okay. So it could be possible that you might you might get some inheritance, or you might give something to your children, or maybe to charity or to some trust. Basically, you are trying to see what is the future of your wealth and your assets, right? So you could either be on the giving end or in the receiving end. Okay, either ways. And along with that, the second house is the house of accumulation, collection. Okay. So maybe it's a good time to do data collection. So if you have a business and you feel that my business is good, but it's not expanding, it's not growing to the extent that I want, or to the extent that I wished or I expected, and then maybe it's a great time for you to see and try to analyze the data. You collect your sales data, or anything which helps you to do further data analysis, and by that you make some assumption or some estimation about how could your future be really, right? So the second house is the core house of finances, anything to do with money, numbers, accounting, calculation, all this. Therefore you could always go for a MBA finance, or you could also do masters in finance. Okay. So you could learn more about finances, you could learn more about wealth, you could focus on networking, because the 11th house is the house of networking, and the second house is your net worth, right? Because that's why they say your network is your net worth. So therefore you could try and expand your network, try to go into events, try to go into groups, and try to network with people, not just for the sake of networking, but by being a genuine well-wisher, and also desiring to learn from others. Okay. And the fourth house is also involved, so there that shows you are doing it out of with knowledge. So there could be some portfolio diversification which you might do, which could help you to diversify your assets, which is indicated by the second house. And of course, because the first house is also involved in this, in the Lagna, so this is something very important for you. All right. So for Capricorn, now Saturn moves to your second house. Try to get a hold of your finances and your family and your connections. Okay. So make new connections and expand yourself. All right. Thank you, Capricorn. And now we move into Aquarius. So what about Aquarius? Yes, yes, yes. Now is the time. Your Lagna Lord is returning to your ascendant. So for Aquarius, this transit is in your first house. So in your Lagna is your head, your intelligence, your outlook of life. Okay. So now is a time when your Lagna Lord is returning to your Lagna. So what does this mean? This means it's like saying you are finding yourself once again, right? So you are like the king basically. Okay. So from the Lagna, he aspects your 10th house, he aspects your 7th and the 3rd. And he's also the Lord of your 12th house, right? Now, because Capricorn is in your 12th house for Aquarius Lagna. So the the first house is the house of power basically. It's the house of politics, political gain, political personality. So if you have any plans to get into politics, maybe it could be a good time, right? And also from the first it aspects your 7th house, right? So 7th house is the house of expansion basically, right? It's the house of vriddhi basically. So if you want to get married, maybe this could be a good time. You might look for potential partner, or if you are already in a relationship, maybe it's a good time to make that commitment for marriage. And also Saturn in general can show people who are a bit vulnerable. So so it could be important now in your life that you try and get the support of your subordinates. Okay. So rather than trying to be this big boss and trying to exert your authority onto people, which is anyways not good, you should try to be humble and try to get the support of your subordinates. Okay. Because the subordinates can really help you, because Saturn represents subordinates basically. And you could also help people who are a part of the the vulnerable sections of the society, right? Like anybody who is in need, right? So along with this, it's a great time for you to focus on your health, because as the famous saying goes, health is wealth. So therefore now is the time that you have a schedule for exercise, for doing yoga, for going to the gym, and for expanding your opportunities in the domain of health. You could also go into health sector, right? And along with this, there could be a change of status, because Saturn aspects your 10th house. So you might get that new big job, that new opportunity. And there could also be international fame. Why? Because the 12th house and the 3rd house are associated with the 10th house. So the 3rd and the 12th can show international avenues, and the 10th house can show fame. So this very well means you could have international fame. And also because the 12th lord is coming to your ascendant, so it can mean that there are some expenses in accounts of your business, some good expenditure which helps you to expand your business. Okay, so there could be some business expenses, or you could, if you are a businessman, you might want to expand and hire new people, make things bigger basically. Okay. So essentially for Aquarius, this transit is in your first house, which is your overall life. So it's very difficult to qualify and quantify this transit into specific areas, but you got to understand that this is the time when you have an opportunity to get your life together. So focus on every area of your life. Of course, it's easier said than done. You always have to prioritize things depending on the need, but now is the time that you look and ponder each and every area of life: your health, your finances, your marriage, your relationships, your your assets, and then try to see where can I improve and what should I do to improve in that sector of life. Okay, so once you do this, then you prioritize according to your situation, your age, and your requirements, and then finally you will obtain grand success. Okay. So congratulations Aquarius, your Lagna lord is appearing, transiting in your Lagna again, and make the best use of this transit. Okay, thank you Aquarius. So now is the time we move into Pisces. So what's going on with Pisces? Pisces is The last ascendant, of course, for every presentation, right? And this transit is happening in your 12th house. And for Pisces, Saturn is your 11th lord, he's also your 12th lord. And from the 12th house, he aspects your second house, he aspects your sixth house, and he aspects your ninth house, right? So, this transit of Saturn in your 12th house can give you divine experiences, right? Spiritual experiences, going into ashrams, going into pilgrimage, going into sacred places, going to holy places, trying to connect to your roots basically. So you see this photo, yes, you see all the flowers and fruits maybe, but this is connected to the roots, right? So you might do yoga, meditation, you can chant mantras, you can do read the Bhagavad Gita, read the Srimad Bhagavatam. You could do all this to obtain divine experiences. Try to meet your guru, try to associate yourself with a spiritual community, because the 11th lord, which shows spiritual communities, provided linked with the ninth house, which is in your case. So therefore, try to find a sense of belonging to some spiritual community. And along with that, Saturn aspects the sixth house. So now is the time that you focus on cultivating discipline in your life. Okay, now is the time you try and see where is your time going, right? So whenever the transit of Saturn is in the 12th house, you got to understand that you need to figure out where you are losing in life. Okay, losing not financially necessarily, but where are you losing time, right? Maybe you need to figure out if you are spending too much time in social media, or maybe just talking to people during your work, or maybe talking too much with your friends, right? So, or maybe you are eating too much, or maybe you are distracted during your work, right? Or you are not focused basically. So now is the time that you try to bring that back focus, bring back that discipline which can take your life to the next level, because nothing worthwhile can be achieved in any area of your life without discipline. And this transit of Saturn could also be a great time to buy a term insurance policy for you, right? So this could also be a good opportunity to do some masters abroad. Why do I say masters? Because the ninth house is linked, and abroad because the 12th house is linked. So you could get an opportunity abroad. It could be opportunity for higher education, or it could also be an on-site opportunity. Okay, and along with that, it's a great time for doing some asset management. So it's like how much money do you have in the bank, how much do you have in your fixed deposits, how much have you invested in mutual funds, stocks, into real estate, or how much commodities do you own, like gold, silver, copper, and all this, or have you also invested into cryptocurrencies, ETFs and all this. So the 11th house can show your asset allocation, and the 12th house can show your expenses and losses, right? So it could happen that some of your assets, some stocks that you purchase, they are not doing very great now. So maybe you might think, if you made right investments, or maybe you could change them, right? Or if there are some brokers in between for mutual funds, for example, you may think twice now, or you may want to change your investments, right? So as I said, so therefore, the 12th house shows your output basically, right? Not output in the sense, it's like your outflow. Okay, so if you feel that in any area of life there is more outflow than the inflow, right? So what you are getting and what you are giving out is more, right? If there is an imbalance, so try to balance it. If you are getting more than what you give, then try to give more. Okay, and if you are giving more than what you are getting, then try to give according to the reciprocation, okay, that you have received. Okay, so therefore This is the time when you try and figure out where you are losing time, where you are losing money, and how can you use this transit to improve your finances and your health and your overall time, because ultimately you can get back anything except time, right? So therefore you got to understand this is the time when I need to see where I am losing time and then make the best decisions. Take help of your gurus, guides and counselors, and also try to join a spiritual community. Okay, so wish you all the best, Pisces.